looking at how does one accomplish, when one is 14, a 60-mile bike trip. And what I found I had to do was to look no further than the next horizon. And when I reached that horizon, I would find another horizon beyond it. And I would keep pedaling. And I didn't try to comprehend riding 60 miles because I couldn't understand what that meant. It was a bigger measure than made any sense to me. When I hiked my first mountain, I had no idea how big a mountain was. I had no conception that you could spend 4 and 5 and 6 hours just going up and up and up and up, and we're still not there yet, and up. So when I was doing this trip when I was 14 on my bicycle, I just kept pedaling. All I had to remember was keep pedaling. Just keep pedaling. And eventually I would get there. And one hill after another, one ridge after another, one small town after another, one farm after another, all passed by, and at the end of the day, just before supper time, I was there. And it changed my definition of what I could do. It changed my definition of how big the world was. It changed my comprehension of how different the world's people might be. That for all the hundreds and hundreds of farms I passed along the way, no two were exactly alike. They were all different. They were all unique. And there were certain things that they had in common, but there were as many things that they had that were totally unique. Different types of cars parked in the driveway. Thankfully, not too many that had dogs that would come out and chase me on my bicycle. That would have been a bit of a problem. But thankfully, no incidents like that I really had to be concerned about. But that was the risk that I took in making the decision to do the trip in the first place. And in climbing a mountain, when there's a trail in front of you and you think, how difficult could it be to hike a trail? You just walk where the dirt is worn. If I can put one foot in front of the other, I can do this. Yes, but it's still something that requires a certain respect. And in that sense, all of life requires a certain respect, that we take chances by being willing to make beginnings. We don't know who we'll meet along the trail. We don't know what we'll meet along the trail. Occasionally I would encounter other hikers that had big dogs that were not on leashes. And the people were not always as responsible as they should have been in controlling their pets. Thankfully, nothing bad happened. And I didn't get bitten or anything. There were some dogs that were clearly not friendly. And the people didn't have control and couldn't have done anything if the dog decided to attack me. But thankfully that didn't happen. There were other ways that I found of being out of their path, other ways of standing my ground or of dealing with the animal that prevented any dangerous thing from happening. It's often been said, and I agree with it in theory, so be very cognizant of the risk if you decide to do otherwise. I have done a lot of hikes by myself. This is not recommended because if anything were to happen, there'd be no one to go for help, no one to tell what happened, no one to help me out if I would have slipped and twisted my ankle, for example, and, such that I couldn't hike the whole way back again. I would have had no way to get out. If in some areas I was told there were mountain lions that lived in the woods and that hunted the deer and the bighorn sheep. If a mountain lion, for whatever reason, had decided that I would make a nice lunch that day, I don't know what I would have done, if I could have survived an attack or not. Thankfully, in all the years I've been hiking, I've never run into that situation. If there were mountain lions and if they saw me, they stayed in the tree and left me alone, for whatever reason. I wanted to go hiking, though, and I couldn't find someone to go with me. And so rather than sit at home and say, I can't find someone to go with me, I went hiking anyway. I generally always took a hiking stick with me just in case, I don't know how much defense it would have been, but it seemed to help in different sorts of situations. But I made the hikes on my own, and it changed, just like that bike trip when I was 14. It changed the way I saw myself. It changed what I believed I could do. It changed my definition of the world, my understanding of how big a mountain is, of how long a trail is, of how much time it takes, and of how tired one gets when traversing those sorts of terrain. You know, I'd never been on a rocky trail before. I'd never scrambled over boulders before I climbed Long's Peak here in Colorado. Uh, it changed my understanding of myself and of the world in which I lived. It expanded how diverse it was. It was, like the song says, much bigger than ever I dreamed. Much higher and steeper, much wider and deeper, there's much more to it. And in a similar way, through meditation or prayer or study or reading a book, finding that the universe within each of us is also much, much bigger. But it's a question of taking the time to look,